Sir, people like you don't belong in places like this. The words sliced through the air like a whip across velvet. Everyone in the luxury dealership turned. The air smelled of new leather, espresso, and arrogance. Crystal pendant lights gleamed off polished chrome. But what caught the eye was the salesman's smirk. He hadn't even asked for a name. Elijah stood there tall, calm, in a plain black hoodie. No Rolex, no flashy shoes. Just quiet presence. One hand in his pocket, the other still holding the brochure the man had refused to give him. The customers laughed under their breath. One whispered, maybe he wandered in from the bus stop. Another pulled out her phone and started recording, just in case the confrontation turned entertaining. But Elijah didn't move, didn't blink. His eyes, dark and steady, stared straight back at the salesman like he was trying to decide whether to speak or let silence do the work. You ever been somewhere and felt the whole room had already decided who you were? The manager stepped closer, arms crossed. If you're just browsing, sir, we have online listings. His tone was low, icy, controlled, like they practiced this kind of rejection 100 times. A pause. Then Elijah tilted his head slightly. You're right, he said. I don't belong here. There was a shift in the room, an uneasy chuckle. Someone whispered, well, at least he knows. But Elijah didn't move to leave. He just stepped forward. And that's when everything began to change. Because the moment he stood up straight, not just physically, but fully, something in the room shifted. The laughter stopped. Phones stopped recording. Every pair of eyes followed him, unknowingly, into the beginning of a story they'd never forget. Have you ever seen a room go from dismissive to deadly quiet without anyone shouting a word? And more importantly, have you ever hidden a part of yourself just to see who dared judge you first? If you've ever been misjudged the second you walked into a room, just whisper one word in the comments, "Scene." Because next you'll find out who Elijah really is. And that wasn't even the worst part. A sharp click echoed through the dealership. The manager tapped a button beneath the counter discreet, but not silent. Seconds later, the security guards in tailored suits stepped out from behind a smoked glass door. No words yet, just presence, calculated, intimidating. Someone near the espresso bar whispered, they really called security. Another laughed. Over a hoodie? Elijah didn't flinch, but you could see it in the tension in his jaw, in the way his fingers curled into his palm. One of the guards stepped forward. Sir, we're going to have to ask you to leave the premises. Elijah tilted his head again, slowly this time. Calm, too calm. Is there a reason? He asked. The guard didn't answer, but the manager did. You've made several customers uncomfortable, and we're a private dealership. We reserve the right to deny service. That line, so polished, so rehearsed, it could have come from a handbook or a courtroom. Elijah nodded once, almost like he expected it. You ever notice how people hide cruelty behind company policy? The woman filming zoomed in. This guy's about to get dragged out for breathing near a Bentley. She muttered, and still, Elijah stood there, not aggressive, not backing down, just still. That kind of stillness, it's louder than shouting. The second guard placed a hand on Elijah's shoulder gently, but with a message, move, or we'll move you. But then, Elijah spoke, low, controlled. You're making a mistake, he said. The manager scoffed. The only mistake was you thinking you could afford anything in here. Gasps rippled through the room. That landed. Elijah's eyes didn't waver. His voice dropped even lower. You might want to check your assumptions before this gets embarrassing for you. And with that, he reached into his back pocket, slow, deliberate. Phones came up. Fingers hovered over record buttons. Because whatever he was about to reveal, no one wanted to miss it. Have you ever witnessed a moment where everything seems about to flip, but no one realizes it yet? If you were him, would you walk out with pride or stay to make a point? Tell me in one word below. Stay or leave. Because what he pulled out of his pocket flipped the entire room upside down. Out came a single object. Slim, black, matte finish, no logos. At first, it looked like a wallet. But when Elijah flipped it open, the light caught something strange, a line of embossed gold, and below it, a silver microchip. He didn't wave it, didn't raise his voice, just placed it gently on the counter, face up. Silence. The manager leaned forward, then squinted. His face froze. There it was, clear as day. Walker Global Holdings, Auto Division Executive Director. The salesman stepped back. Wait, what is this? Elijah didn't answer. He let the room speak for him. You know that sound when marble tiles shift under expensive shoes, like the air just got heavier. That's what filled the room now. One customer whispered, "Did he say, Walker?" Another blinked at the badge, confused, like Walker Auto, as in the supplier. The manager tried to recover. Okay, Butanian could print something like that. The tension snapped again. One of the guards shifted uncomfortably. Should we confirm that, sir? The manager hesitated. Then Elijah finally spoke. If you really want confirmation, he said, voice steady, call your regional director. Ask who owns 22% of your parent company. He didn't smile. He didn't blink. Because this wasn't a bluff. It was a quiet warhead drop without warning. Have you ever seen someone drop a sentence and the room forgets how to breathe? Someone in the back dropped their coffee. The crash was almost symbolic. The woman filming whispered, "No way. This can't be real." But deep down, the room knew something big was unraveling. What would you do if you realized the person you just insulted might sign your next paycheck? Would you apologize or pretend it didn't happen? Let me take you back, because before Elijah built an empire, he was just a kid who got laughed out of garages. And that's where it gets personal. Before I take you into what happened next, I know you might be watching this on your lunch break, or maybe someone just called your name. But if stories like this hit you deep, if you've ever been judged before people knew your name, hit subscribe, because what Elijah did next changes everything. But first, let me take you back to a garage in Atlanta. 15 years ago, a teenage boy, hands stained with motor oil, standing outside a rusted service door. He had walked 3 miles that morning, no car, no license, just a dream. He knocked twice. The shop manager opened, looked him up and down, and said, "We don't take street kids. Try the junkyard," then slammed the door. That was Elijah's first attempt at working with cars. He was 16. That night, he sat in the corner of his mom's kitchen, fingers trembling, heart crushed. His mother placed a bowl of beans in front of him and said, "They'll never open the door for you, baby. So you build your own damn building." Those words stuck, and Elijah listened. He worked night shifts cleaning parking garages, used the Wi-Fi from gas stations to study mechanical design, applied to community college 5 times, got rejected 4. But he kept going, because rejection, it wasn't new. And he knew, one day, he'd come back not asking for a job but offering contracts. You ever been told you're not good enough and believed it, just for a second, but then something in you refused to quit? Tell me, in one word, build if you've ever had to build your own path. Because no one gave you one. Because when Elijah returned to the dealership years later, he wasn't looking for a car. He was looking for a lesson, and someone was about to learn it the hard way. Walker Holdings, the manager scoffed, "That doesn't mean anything to us. This is a private dealership. If you don't intend to buy something, we have other guests to attend to." The badge still sat on the counter, untouched. The manager refused to even look at it again. One of the salesmen, younger, nervous, muttered, "Sir, maybe we should call HQ, just 2. "No," the manager snapped. "He's bluffing. Look at him." The words hung heavy. Look at him, as if a hoodie and calm eyes were reason enough to deny reality. The younger salesman stepped back. One of the guards crossed his arms again, but now his posture wasn't as firm. The room felt split not by walls, but by silence. You ever been in a space where truth tries to break through, but pride holds the door shut? The woman with the phone was still recording. She whispered, "If this is a bluff, it's the best one I've ever seen." But Elijah didn't say a word. He just took out his phone, tapped once, and placed it on speaker. 3 rings. Then a voice answered, "This is Michael Chen, Walker Holdings." The entire room froze. Elijah said just one sentence. "Hey Michael, I'm at the Delano dealership. Could you let them know who signed the acquisition contract last Thursday?" There was a pause. Then the voice on the phone replied, "Of course, 1 sec." That click the moment Michael went to pull up the file was louder than thunder. The manager's face paled. His lips parted, trying to think of something to say. But what do you say when your arrogance just dialed the man who signs your paycheck? Have you ever watched someone's certainty turn to fear in real time? Would you keep pushing or start apologizing? Because what Michael said next broke the room in half. Michael's voice returned. Calm, clear, businesslike. Yes, that location was officially transferred under Elijah Walker's executive oversight as of last Thursday. He owns controlling interest now. Dead silence. The kind of silence where you can hear hearts thudding in real time. The woman filming dropped her phone. A man near the corner actually took off his sunglasses. The manager. He staggered a half step backward. "You own this dealership," he said, almost choking on the words. Elijah didn't move, didn't gloat. He simply nodded once, slow, deliberate. "I own 22% of your parent company," he said, "which gives me oversight of every Delano location in the southeast region, including this one." One of the security guards muttered under his breath, "Oh hell." The younger salesman took the steps back, hands in the air, as if caught mid-crime. "And that woman who filmed," she turned the camera on herself, whispering, "I just watched a man get told he owns the building he was about to be kicked out of." You ever seen someone realize they just insulted their future boss in front of a dozen witnesses? That's not just awkward. That's legacy-level humiliation. The manager tried to stammer something, apology, excuse, anything. But Elijah spoke first. "You judge a man by his clothes, by his skin, by your own fear." His voice didn't rise, but somehow it echoed across the polished floors and mahogany counters like thunder in a cathedral. "You saw what you wanted to see," he continued, "and now you get to live with what you missed." Have you ever wanted to disappear not because someone yelled at you, but because they spoke the truth clearly? That room, it didn't just fall silent. It collapsed. But Elijah wasn't done yet, because his final request was the one that made the entire staff freeze. Elijah reached into his jacket pocket, the one no one noticed earlier. From it, he pulled out a small envelope, thick, embossed in gold. He slid it across the counter toward the manager. "This," he said quietly, "is my first formal action under new ownership." The manager stared at it like it might explode. He didn't touch it, so Elijah opened it for him. Inside, a printed memo. Letterhead, Walker Global Holdings. Subject line, immediate staff audit and full diversity compliance review, Delano, Atlanta. The final line, to be implemented immediately. Effective today. Gasps scattered through the showroom like shattered glass. The older guard stepped back. The younger salesman whispered, "He's cleaning house." A woman in heels stepped forward from the crowd, a client. She clapped once, then again. Others followed. Not loud applause, but quiet, respectful. The kind people give when a wrong is made right with outrage. Have you ever seen justice fall like snow, quiet, but unstoppable? Elijah didn't raise his voice once. He didn't threaten anyone. He just acted, and the system that had tried to push him out now stood frozen, waiting for his judgment. The manager's hands trembled as he asked, should we notify the corporate office? Elijah met his eyes not cruelly, not even angrily, just with the weight of someone who had built his name on being underestimated. "I already did," he replied, 2 days ago. And that was the moment the power shifted. Not just in title, but in truth. Have you ever dreamed of saying nothing and still changing everything? Because Elijah didn't just walk into a dealership that day. He walked into history. And the story behind how he earned it right starts with a little boy and an engine that refused to start. Long before badges and business cards, there was just grease. And a boy named Elijah. He was 10 when he first touched a car engine. It belonged to Mr. Harmon, the the neighbor who never smiled except when his pickup roared to life. One day, that truck wouldn't start, and Elijah, curious and brave, climbed under it with nothing but a flashlight and scraped knuckles. By sunset, it ran again. Mr. Harmon said nothing, but the next week, he handed Elijah a socket wrench, no words, just a look. That was how it began. No trust fund, no rich uncle, just machines and patience. By 13, Elijah could identify car problems by sound alone. By 15, he was sketching his own engine designs on napkins in the school cafeteria. But no one noticed. Teachers called him distracted. Classmates called him the car kid. One counselor said, "College might not be realistic for someone like you." And still Elijah sketched. You ever had a dream that made you feel crazy until it started working? He fixed neighbors' cars for free, saved every dollar, and when he turned 18, he applied to a mechanical engineering program. Rejected. Applied again. Rejected. Not because he lacked talent, but because his zip code and last name didn't sound like legacy material. So Elijah did what most wouldn't. He built his own blueprint not on paper, but on people. He started a mobile auto repair business, then scaled it to a diagnostics firm, then opened his own parts distribution warehouse. One client became 2, became 20. Then came the merger. Then came Walker Global Holdings. No investors, no shortcuts. Just one man who kept every rejection letter and turned them into policy drafts. Have you ever felt the world wasn't made for you, so you decided to make your own world instead? Comment one word that drives you the way engines drove Elijah. Because the most powerful moment of this story, it wasn't in the dealership. It came the night Elijah got a letter that should have broken him, but instead lit the match. The letter arrived on a rainy Thursday. Thin, plain envelope, no return address. It was from the city. A formal notice. The building permit for his new warehouse had been revoked. No explanation. No appeal. Just gone. 2 years of savings, 18 months of design, 5 different approvals, all erased by one silent stamp. Elijah stared at the letter for an hour. Didn't move. Didn't speak. Just sat alone in the back office of his makeshift garage. The hum of fluorescent lights above him. The sound of rain tapping against metal walls like a countdown. You ever get news so unfair it doesn't even make you angry at first? Just numb. He didn't cry. Couldn't. Because even grief felt like a luxury. That night, he sat in his car for hours. Key in the ignition, engine off. Just silence. And then, something shifted. He pulled out a notebook, flipped to the last page, and wrote one sentence. They erased a permit, but they didn't erase me. That line, it became a mission. Elijah began digging into zoning laws, into city council back channels, into the networks that kept permits in the hands of a chosen few, and everyone else behind the velvet rope. It was bigger than him, bigger than a garage. This was about who gets to build and who gets quietly erased. He hired a lawyer, then a compliance team, then a lobbyist. 6 months later, not only did he get the permit reinstated, he got the department director fired. But he never posted about it, never gave interviews. He just smiled and bought the land next door, too. You ever take something that broke you and turn it into something permanent? Tell me below, have you ever faced something so unfair it forced you to level up? Because that night in the car, that's when Elijah stopped building a business and started building a system. The same system that would one day buy out the dealership and change everything. Back at the dealership, you could almost feel the air shift. The manager, pale and shaken, finally stepped forward. His voice cracked. Mr. Walker, I want to personally apologize. What this team didn't know. Elijah didn't respond right away. He just looked around the room, the marble floors, the polished Bentleys, and the people who, minutes earlier, wouldn't even hand him a brochure. You didn't want to know, he said. The words weren't loud, but they hit harder than any shout. The woman who had been filming, she stopped recording, put her phone down, not out of respect, out of shame. One of the salesmen stepped forward nervously. Sir, would you like us to bring the catalog now? or perhaps a test drive. Elijah glanced at the row of luxury cars behind the glass wall, then turned back, calm as ever. "I didn't come here to buy," he said. "I came to observe." Silence again, but this time, it wasn't awkward. It was heavy, like everyone was waiting for permission to breathe. You ever see a room of adults realize all at once they misread everything? The older security guard took off his earpiece. "Mr. Walker," he said quietly, "I didn't know, truly." Elijah nodded once, then walked to the receptionist's desk. He took a comment card from the holder, wrote something down, folded it, left it face down. No drama, no revenge speech, just legacy in ink. Then he turned toward the exit. But before he reached the door, a young trainee probably no older than Elijah had been that day outside the garage called out, "Sir, will we see you again?" Elijah paused, smiled faintly. "Only if this place changes." And with that he stepped into the sunlight. Have you ever watched a man leave not as a customer, but as a lesson? Because Elijah didn't buy a car that day. He bought clarity. But the story isn't over. Because what he did after walking out was bigger than any dealership. It rewrote the rules and lifted others behind him. Elijah didn't speak to the press, didn't post the video, didn't leak the recording to shame the dealership. He didn't need to, because what mattered to him wasn't headlines. It was history. In his office, days later, he sat across from his team. Lawyers to HR leaders, community partners. He placed the folded comment card on the table. It read, "Humiliation is free. Respect takes investment. Choose wisely." Then he looked up. "This isn't about a car," he said. "It never was." Someone asked, "Then what was it about?" Elijah leaned back, his voice calm, reflective. "It's about access. It's about what happens when people assume power only wears a suit." He paused. "They thought I didn't belong. Because I didn't look like ownership. Because I didn't sound like it. Because I didn't need their approval to walk in." The room stayed silent. He continued, "How many young men have walked into that showroom and left thinking they were less, simply because of how they were treated? You ever ask yourself, how much talent has been turned away not because it lacks skill but because it lacks status?" Elijah tapped his fingers once. "We can change that," he said, "not with speeches, with systems." That day, he launched a new initiative. The GATE program, a nationwide fund for underrepresented entrepreneurs in the auto industry. Mentorship, capital, direct ownership stakes. No pitch contests, no media stunts. Just access, quiet, powerful, permanent. Because Elijah knew, the real revenge isn't in firing people. It's in replacing barriers with bridges. Have you ever felt like the system was built to keep you out? Then maybe, just maybe, you're meant to build a new one. Because Elijah's story was never just about one man walking out of a dealership. It was about thousands waiting to walk in. Weeks passed. The dealership changed. New staff, new policies, mandatory inclusion training, an anonymous feedback line. They even placed Elijah's quote, the one from the comment card, in a frame near the entrance. Some thought it was a warning, but those who knew, they saw it for what it was. A reminder that respect isn't optional. One morning, Elijah passed by the same dealership on his way to a city board meeting. He didn't stop, didn't need to, but as he sat at the next red light, he looked in the rearview mirror and saw something. A young boy, maybe 16, standing near the front window, wearing oil-stained jeans, holding a notebook, looking through the glass with that look. Hope, nervousness, a question no one had answered yet. Elijah smiled because he remembered. He remembered what it felt like to be invisible and still show up anyway. And he knew maybe the boy wouldn't have to be turned away this time. Maybe the glass door would open. Maybe someone inside would ask, "What do you dream about building?" And maybe that was the real ending. Not applause, not headlines, but access. Because the most powerful thing Elijah ever built wasn't a dealership. It was a way in. Have you ever felt like your story could make space for someone else? Then share it, because someone's waiting outside the door right now, and they just need one person to leave it unlocked. If this story moved you, tell me. Which part hit you the hardest? I read every word, and I'll keep writing stories for you. Because this was just one name, one door, and one man who refused to walk away quietly.